LWO1 WeatherNet. Liftoff conditions looking pretty good.
CSG-2 is ready for launch.
Ignition. Liftoff.
Falcon 9 has cleared the tower.
Ten, 9, 8,
Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
On your screen is a live view of Falcon 9 awaiting its 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Good evening and welcome to our launch coverage of Cosmos SkyMed's second generation FM2 for our customer Thales Alenia Space. My name is Jesse Anderson and I'm a production and engineering manager for Falcon here at SpaceX and coming to you today from our SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Our payload today, Cosmos SkyMed, is the first Earth observation constellation of satellites operated for both civilian and military purposes to help monitor the environment, including the prevention and management of natural disasters. It's an Italian satellite constellation owned by the Italian Space Agency and Ministry of Defense. We'll have more on the capabilities of Cosmos SkyMed a bit later in the webcast. Now, for those of you following along, you'll know that we had to stand down from our initial attempt yesterday due to unfavorable weather. Now, unfortunately, today is not looking much better as we are currently in violation of the thick cloud layer rule and are red on the range. But we are hopeful that weather conditions will improve over the next few minutes for liftoff today. For now, let's take a moment and get a little bit more familiar with that Falcon 9 rocket that you see on your screen. Our two-stage liquid-fueled launch vehicle stands 70 meters tall, which is equivalent to the wingspan of a 747 jet. Now, like many of our missions these days, the booster supporting today's flight is flying for the third time, having previously supported 2 Falcon Heavy missions in 2019, and that was STP-2 and Arabsat-6A missions. There are 3 main parts of the rocket visible on your screen, and that's the first stage, second stage, and the satellite fairing. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle are what we call the first stage, and this is the portion of the vehicle that is covered with soot from its previous flights. Now, last year, 29 of our 31 launches were flown on flight-proven first stages, or in other words, over 90% of our launches last year were on first stages that had flown before. The first stage's primary role is to accelerate all the way to the edge of space with the help of its 9 Merlin M1D engines. And then there, it will drop off the second stage, which has the payload attached. Now, the first stage will then make its way back to Earth, where we will attempt to recover it back on land today at Landing Zone 1, and you can see that landing zone on your screen there. Now, if you turn your attention to the section above stage 1 and that black carbon fiber inner stage, you'll see Falcon 9's second stage. About 2.5 minutes into flight, the stages will separate, and the second stage will ignite its single Merlin vacuum engine to carry itself and the Cosmos SkyMed satellite to a polar sun-synchronous orbit. Now, the satellite is safely enclosed inside of the payload fairing, which is what you're seeing on your screen. That's that large nose cone at the very top of the rocket. Our fairing is about 40 feet tall and with a 17-foot diameter. Now, to put that size into perspective, an average fire truck is about 40 feet long and 12 feet wide, so it would just fill the fairing. As for payload mass, Falcon 9 is capable of carrying about 50,000 pounds to low Earth orbit. Now, a fire truck is a good analogy for this as well, because it can weigh about just that when it's filled with water and people. Today, our Cosmos SkyMed payload is about 5,000 pounds, or 10% of Falcon 9's total capacity. The fairing halves we are using today are flight-proven, and we'll be attempting to recover them once again when they make their way back to Earth. Now, we're just under the T-minus 12-minute mark until liftoff. The Falcon 9 team began their final checks at T-minus 2 hours. And most recently, we completed the ground team pull to proceed with propellant load and launch at T-minus 38 minutes. We begin prop loading at T-minus 35 minutes, and Falcon 9 is a bipropellant vehicle, and that means that we use two propellants, and that's a fuel and an oxidizer. So for Falcon 9, we use a refined form of kerosene, or RP1, or rocket propellant 1, for our fuel. And then to burn the fuel, we need an oxidizer. Falcon 9's oxidizer is super chilled liquid oxygen, or what we call densified LOX. And that is chilled well below its boiling point, which increases its density, and that allows us to load more into the first and second stage LOX tanks. Now, currently, fuel loading is complete on the second stage, while loading continues on the first stage until about T-minus 6 minutes. Liquid oxygen is loading on both first and second stages as we speak.
So, welcome to the live cast for the CSG-2 mission for SpaceX. They're going to be launching a satellite into low Earth orbit, and this mission is going to be a bit interesting because they're going into what's called a sun-synchronous orbit, which is a typical type of orbit that's used in satellites, specifically for Earth observation. And that's exactly what the CSG-2 mission is all about. So it's an Italian-built satellite that is designed specifically for Earth observation. And yeah, you got a good overview of the Falcon 9 launch vehicle that was just given. Basically, they describe the systems that are involved in the vehicle, and the fuel that they're using, and a bit about the mission strategy. So yeah, it looks like they're going to be it'll be a bit interesting with the weather today because they are maybe not going to be able to launch. This is one of the challenges of course, launching, is that you're always subject to some weather forces. The Falcon 9 is particularly susceptible because it is a very skinny vehicle, so it can have troubles with high altitude winds. But it looks like that's not the problem today. It looks like it's more of a visibility problem with some thick cloud layers in the upper atmosphere. So yeah, we'll see if we are still a go to launch today. Hopefully we'll get to see a launch, but things can always change. So yeah, definitely we'll have to stay posted with what happens next. So we have about 9 minutes left to launch, so you can keep your eye on the clock that's in the lower part of the screen, and it'll be telling you what the timeline is for the vehicle roughly. Yeah, one interesting thing about this booster is that it's actually a really old one. It's 1052.3, and the way that the Falcon 9 booster numbers work is that the first four numbers are indicating the booster that it is, and the number that's after the point is the number of times that it's flown. So because it's 0.3, that means that it's actually flown twice already, and this will be its third mission. So yeah, what does and interestingly enough, it flew a really long time ago, back in 2019. It was actually a Falcon Heavy side booster, so it's kind of had to go through a bit of a retrofit in order to get ready to once again become a Falcon 9 launch vehicle. But yeah, maybe we listen into what they're saying about the CSG satellite here.
It's not only a very important technical instruments in the field of Earth observation, but it's also an important support to the strategy of Italy to international collaboration. Thanks to Cosmos SkyMed over the years, and even more will be in the future with the enlargement of the constellation, we can establish collaboration with other countries to share use of data provided by the constellation and to enlarge the coverage of the planet with other instruments offered by partners. I'm talking about so far, for example, Argentina. We plan in the future to do collaboration with Israel and so on. Also very important is the fact that we use Cosmos SkyMed as third-party contributor to the Copernicus program of the European Space Agency and European Union. In this way, we offer important strategic and precious data to collect with our constellation, also to other partners, to other producers of data for the benefit of Europe and the rest of the world.
You may have noticed that the clock has stopped. That is because we've had a hold on the countdown due to poor weather conditions. Leading up to launch, there was a strong cold front approaching Florida and some thick layered cloudiness in the area. Now, when we started the webcast, we were red on the range in violation of the thick cloud rule. We were hopeful that weather conditions were going to improve for liftoff, but unfortunately, we are standing down from today's attempt. The vehicle and the payload remain in good health in our next.
So it looks like they're actually going to scrub the launch, unfortunately. Yeah, so I guess the weather didn't quite pick up the way they wanted to. So yeah, let's try and get together again tomorrow to see if we can watch this vehicle get launched. Yeah, so we've learned a little bit about the CSG-2 satellite. There's a little bit more that we'll talk about, I guess, tomorrow. And also, I would like to go a little bit more into how exactly the Falcon 9 reuses itself, because there are lots of interesting and cool systems that are involved there. And yeah, it's always good to walk through what exactly is happening. So yeah, look forward to joining tomorrow.